Hey everybody, it's 12:30 here Eastern time, and I'm super stoked to introduce Ryan Chan, the founder and CEO of UpKeep, what I call where tech meets reliability and asset operations. It's so amazing. He actually wrote a book on it, right? So he's going to talk about asset operations here in a minute. Ryan, thanks so much for joining us for your second time at LRVS. He was the keynote last year, right? So thanks for joining us.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Josh, for the introduction, and thank you everyone for joining today. Really appreciate it. I try to keep these as interactive as possible, so please, if you have questions, if you have any thoughts, comments, concerns, put it in the chat. I'm starting to already see we got some excited folks here joining us. I've got about like 30 minutes is what I'm told, and I've got a lot of slides, so I'm going to be moving really, really fast. Today, we're going to be talking about asset operations, the next generation of what I believe maintenance and reliability will be. Thank you, Vinny. Thank you, Bob, for the positive words of encouragement as we kick things off. All right, so my agenda for today is I'll share a little bit more about myself and UpKeep, where UpKeep is today and where I believe it'll be in the future. We'll talk more about what asset operations is and why I think it's critical for the industry. And then we'll talk about the 8 pillars of asset operations through our customer stories. We'll conclude it with some closing thoughts. So again, lots and lots of content to jump into. Let's get in here. Thank you, Heather. A lot of excited people for today. So as I mentioned, my name is Ryan. I'm the CEO and founder of UpKeep. A little bit about UpKeep, just some quick stats. The company was founded in 2016. We have about 4,000 customers. We've raised about $50 million in venture capital, and we have over 5,000 community members. We've been named a leader, CMS, EAM, across Gartner, Capterra, IDC, and a whole list of other third-party analysts. In a pretty short period of time, so I'm really proud of the team and what we've been able to accomplish. As I mentioned, my goal, thank you, Lucas. My goal for today is to inspire us to be part of shaping the future of maintenance. Again, my background, I was a chemical engineer from Berkeley. I was, thinking about how do we improve our manufacturing process every single day. A little bit about my role working as a process engineer. This is me on my very first day of work about 10 years ago. I worked at a company called Tricep Manufacturing. We manufactured reverse osmosis membranes for brackish water desalination, a little bit of wastewater. My role there was a process engineer, and every single day I was thinking about how do we take our manufacturing line and make it go better, faster, smoother, run more productively. It was a spin out from DuPont Chemicals. And this is actually a picture of our manufacturing line and what our reverse osmosis membranes actually look like in the wild, in production. We ran a thin film composite that would go through a series of chemical reactions to create small little pores. These pores are so small that it will allow H2O molecules to go through them and reject out any saltwater molecules. You can imagine this manufacturing line was extremely finicky. We experienced a lot of downtime, literally because a dust particle could fall into one of our rollers and throw off the entire line. So downtime was critical for us, but it happened way too much. And so again, I was actually part of and responsible for trying to figure out better processes. So my role there, again, was a process engineer. We looked for technology. We looked to technology to help us better understand why our equipment was failing and how we could make our equipment more reliable. So we actually, looked high, looked low, found the best thing that we could find. But ultimately, this is what our process looked like at a manufacturing plant. Boiler would go down, someone would walk by, realize an issue, call a facility manager, write it down on a piece of paper, call a technician, write it down on a piece of paper. Technician would go out to the job site, do the repair, take all of their notes down on a piece of paper, pencil. And then my job was to ask all of the techs to come back to the office and then, retype it back into this, crummy desktop maintenance software. I had mentioned earlier, I went to Cal Berkeley. If you know where Cal Berkeley is, it's in the heart and center of technology, kind of in the Silicon Valley area. And I was thinking to myself, coming from Cal, where the hell is all of the innovation? I thought, AI, machine learning was supposed to take over the factory floors. And I remember being part of, the Bay Area, the whole tech scene, the whole tech craze, and saying, hey, wasn't AI, machine learning supposed to take over factory floors? I remember seeing all of these headlines saying that 30 million U.S. workers are going to lose their job. Robots are going to replace all of us. AI automation is going to, be the death of every single factory worker. I just remember seeing all of these headlines, but then kind of getting my foot into the actual manufacturing lines in manufacturing industry. I remember just reading all of these headlines, but then seeing something so completely different, something so different working in a manufacturing plant where what I realized is that the technology that we were using was still so outdated. And ultimately, I brought this up to our team. I said, "Hey, couldn't we? Can't we make this change?" And every single time I brought this up, people would say it would take decades for anything to change. And ultimately, this is the founding story behind UpKeep. I believe that technology should actually make the days, lives, and jobs easier for technicians out in the shop floor. And ultimately, this shift in mindset is how we got to where we are today. We've got, again, over 4,000 customers that have supported us, that have believed in our mission to get off of, paper and pen and into this digital world. And I feel super privileged to say that, I've played a small role in transforming the industry, but I believe that there's still a long road behind us, or ahead of us, sorry. And I think that there's a new opportunity for all of us to create another shift in mindset once again. But before we talk about asset operations, before we talk about my vision of what the future looks like for maintenance, reliability, and operations, I want to take a pause and say, before we can look forward, we got to look at where we are today. And I believe that today maintenance is divided. Organizations are split up into 3 different teams. You got maintenance, who cares about repairs, operations, who cares about the equipment line right now, right this second. And then you have reliability, who cares about what might happen tomorrow. We're all working on the same equipment in parallel, but we're not working together. You've got organizations split up into 3 separate teams, 3 separate departments, all working hopefully to achieve the same goal, but we're not working together. And oftentimes what we see amongst these 3 different organizations and teams is that everything they're doing for their equipment is actually separated into silos. These data silos, of your IoT system, your ERP system, your MES, your EIM, your CMMS, you've got more technical data than ever. But data is not shared across platforms or teams. It's fragmented and creates these misaligned perspectives across the entire business. All right, where are we today? We have a ton of information gaps, and these information gaps actually lead to rework. We ran a study. This is a stat polled. 20% of work that's done out in the field today is done as rework. This basically means they are redoing a job that someone had previously done. And I believe it's not because of a technician's fault, but because they don't have the right access to the information to get it right the first time. So these information silos are actually causing a ton of rework within businesses, unproductive work that could go into better, servicing our equipment. On top of that, you have these 3 separate teams, 3 separate measures of success, all operating on the same equipment, but approaching their work with misaligned goals. You've got maintenance, who cares about oftentimes work completed, operations, who cares about just production throughput. You've got reliability that cares about what might happen tomorrow, and the meantime between failure availability. I believe that maintenance operations reliability should have one goal: to improve the bottom line. But right now, we're all working so independently to achieve this with these 3 separate departments. This is where I believe we are today. you've got these siloed solutions, disconnected data, and poor adoption that really prevents maintenance, reliability, and operations teams from being successful. And I would say this is just simply not working. And through this work, people are stuck in the cycle of being undersupported, undervalued, misunderstood. And so what do I mean by undersupported, undervalued, misunderstood? Technicians are not supported by the technology that they use. It actually makes their days, lives, and jobs more difficult. On top of that, undervalued budgets right now are very misinformed. Oftentimes we ask our leaders, how do you set budget for maintenance? And their most common response is just a replacement of asset value. But why? Why is it 2%, not 3%? Why is it 5%, not 4%? We don't have the full information data set to help us drive the right decisions to say, this is why we need to invest 4% versus 3%. We don't have the full asset, life cycle visibility of what we do and why we do it and the impact that it has to our business. What do I mean by misunderstood? Maintenance teams are right now measured by what they do, not why they do it. We ran a survey. We asked companies, what's the most important thing for your business and how do you track it? So there's two questions. What's most important to you? How do you track it? And 43% of businesses said reducing downtime was their number one goal. But businesses also said, how we track it? Well, we don't have the full visibility to track downtime and the production throughput and the impact of the business. So we measure and track our maintenance team success based off of completed planned preventative maintenance. 47% of businesses say that's the measure of success. But really, they're just tracking what technicians are doing rather than the outcome of the hard work. And there's a big disconnect between what matters and what's measured. Planned maintenance, that's just a check mark. That's how many check marks you could check off the box. But do we even know if it's effective or not? Do we even know if planned maintenance is affecting our downtime? We think that there's a huge disconnect between what they're doing and why they do it. And that's because they don't have the entire asset life cycle so that they can actually, track and measure that. What happens if this continues? I think we're just restart the cycle that led us to where we are today, which is oftentimes maintenance being viewed as a cost center. All right, I told you at the very, very beginning that my goal was to inspire all of us to be part of the next generation of maintenance. It's probably not sounding super inspirational just yet, but please stay with me. I think that we have the opportunity to break this cycle. And the most powerful thing that we can do is shift the entire industry's mindset. Shift the entire industry's mindset from 3 different teams with 3 different goals, all working in parallel, to instead one team working on your asset operations together to achieve a common goal, where we are viewing our work across the entire asset lifecycle, bridging and breaking down silos so that our success is measured not based off of how many checkboxes we complete, how many work orders we complete, how many PMs we complete, but instead by the outcomes of the business and the production throughput. And I believe that as one team, we take isolated data, feed it into one centralized command center, and give our customers and people in our industry access to the entire asset lifecycle. To change the conversation from how many hours did you work today to what's the value that you've added to the business today? Change that conversation from how many PMs did you complete to the impact and effect of all of the PMs that you did and how it impacted long-term reliability, reduced downtime, improved production throughput, and ultimately impacted business profit. And my goal here is shift our entire thinking to kickstart this next generation of maintenance, where maintenance will be viewed as a profit center. I believe that this is not only possible, but more important now than ever before. As IDC puts it, the future of operations is data-driven, resilient, remotely capable, and collaborative. The AOM vision, the asset operations management vision, is all about company-wide intelligence to thread together an organization's maintenance management, passive and active data about their assets and its unique operational blueprint to make it easier and faster for every employee to get what they need to do their jobs successfully. All right, so we talked a little bit about my story and how I came to, kickstart, this digitization of maintenance software. We talked a little bit about where we are today and what I believe is a, big problem for our industry. We talked a little bit more about what I believe asset operations is. And I want to share some of our customer stories. I actually wrote a book called Asset Operations. And in our book, there's 8 core pillars of asset operations. And I want to walk you all through what our 8 pillars are, but through the lens of our customers. What, Playbooger, Ramadan Peterson mentioned is that raw information reaches us at an intellectual level, but stories reach into our hearts and stories form deep grooves. So I'm going to share 8 stories of our customers that walk us through the 8 pillars of asset operations. The 8 pillars of asset operations, maintenance, reliability, and operations must work and operate together to be aligned on achieving a common goal. That's pillar number 1. Pillar number 2 is data needs to flow into a single data repository. Pillar number 3 is measure teams based on why they do something rather than what they do. Pillar number 4 is relentlessly collect the right data, display the best insights, provide actionable feedback through a centralized command center. Pillar number 5, asset operations is an abundant life cycle, not just a point in time. Pillar 6, you can only improve what you measure. Pillar 7, diligently measure the efficiency of your asset. And pillar number 8 is maintenance, reliability, and operations can be a revenue driver, not a cost center. I want to walk you through each one of our pillars through the lens of our customers. Our first asset operations management pillar is that maintenance, operations, reliability must operate together to align on achieving a common goal. I want to tell you a story about one of our customers, Glidewell. They're a manufacturing plant that has employees, over 2,000 employees. Before they embarked on their vision of asset operations, they had these wildly inefficient processes that were misaligned between their production team and their maintenance team. And they said, hey, we need to create a common goal that enabled them to speak the same language, to get production on the same page as maintenance. They created a goal around OEE and said what we should all care about is the operational efficiency of their equipment, and not just have it be production's goal, and not just use maintenance's goals as PMs completed. And they saw a wildly successful implementation. They saw improved communication between production team and better shift transitions. They had better response times across their team. And ultimately, Anita, who's the one rolling out this project amongst Glidewell, they said visibility improved our relationship with the production departments. They're notified instantly when requests change status, and then improved trust that they're taking care of their equipment has just wildly increased. Pillar number 2, data must flow into a single repository. Another one of our customers, a company called Certaris, works in the oil and gas industry, has over 500 employees. They manage fleet, like oil, gas equipment on actual trucks that are traveling across different countries even. And it was difficult for them to know where equipment was located because they've got all of their equipment on these fleets. They had 6 different systems though. One was tracking their equipment, one was tracking their fleet, one was tracking, the GPS, one was tracking cost data. It was incredibly difficult to know where equipment was located. When they embarked on the asset operations management journey and said, we need to centralize all of our data into a single repository, they wound up saving over $500,000 a year in cost savings by integrating, UpKeep with Samsara, their ERP systems. They spent $10,000 to build this integration, took 3 weeks to deploy it, and had over $500,000 a year in savings. Centralizing all of their data into a single repository enabled them to save time because they didn't need to figure out where their equipment was located because it all lived under a single data repository. Pillar number 3, measure teams based on why they do something rather than what they do. Another one of our customers, Molycorp, work in the mining industry, employ over 1,000 people. They were measuring success based off of preventative maintenance. Not my favorite metric. After they embarked on their asset operations management journey, they were able to improve production or plant availability by 5% by measuring the success by production throughput. All right, I'm being told that we got 8 minutes left, so I'm going to speed through these. Pillar number 4, collect the right data, display the best insights, provide actionable feedback through a centralized command center. One of our customers, Welch Packaging, they manufacture packaging material. They basically said they're unable to track work orders, parts, materials. They had 5 different modes of communication. They embarked on their asset operations management journey to centralize all of this into a single command center for all of their maintenance, reliability, and operations, saved over $250,000 a year. They canceled meetings. They improved efficiency around the entire plant by, again, creating a central command center so that every single person within maintenance, reliability, operations knew exactly where to go to. And it's the centralized dashboard, centralized command center versus trying to figure out who to go to for what. Pillar number 5, continuous improvement is an abundant life cycle, not just a point in time. Nat Gas, works in the oil gas industry. They basically said before their asset operations management journey, reliability analyses were far and few in between. They would take data, export it, maybe once a year, run analysis and say, okay, cool, here's what we need to do. Take all of this information, port it over into their maintenance team. And if they were lucky, they would do this once a year. They were able to integrate all of this into a centralized database where they can actually do real-time reports instead of take their data, export it once a year. And this enabled them to see in real time the maintenance impact to sales on a continuous basis. This idea that continuous improvement is not just a point in time. It happens and should be happening every single day. The faster that we iterate, the faster that we move, the faster that we make better decisions about how we can improve. This is enabled through a centralized data repository where it doesn't take so much time to capture your data, export it, analyze it, take all of these analyses and then hand it back into, let's call it a CMS. All right, everything measured can be improved. What can be measured will be improved. One of our customers, Layfield, works in manufacturing, basically said it's a struggle to track anything to begin with. Oftentimes, when you're working off paper and pen, it becomes very difficult to measure. And they embarked on their asset operations management journey. They were able to centralize all of their data and say, here's one measure of success. Let's track mean time to repair. And just this simple thing enabled them to improve uptime by just simply getting the data and having a report in the dashboard that enabled them to improve their operations. Pillar number 7, make data accessible wherever you are. One of our customers, Shoal IPN, said it was difficult, slow to use on a day-to-day basis, trying to capture all of their data, raise tickets. After they embarked on their asset operations management journey, they said, we got to make data accessible, and not just make it accessible, but easy. They put QR codes on all of their assets so that someone could walk up to a piece of equipment, scan an asset, pull up the entire asset registry. It not only improved the productivity of their team, but also unlocked, 90+% data capture into their CMS, when before they were just struggling, trying to get anyone to write it down and then come back to an office and then put it into a Excel spreadsheet. Our last pillar, maintenance, reliability, and operations are revenue drivers, not just cost centers. Brew Dr. Kombucha, hopefully maybe some of us have had one of their drinks or two. They basically said, spare parts and maintenance costs just continue to increase year over year. I'm sure many of us can relate to this, where every single budgeting cycle, hey, why is maintenance cost going up, and how do we justify it? After Brew Dr. Kombucha, they said they embarked on their asset operations management journey. They were able to centralize all of their data and showcase the impact to the bottom line. And ultimately, they're able to set new production and revenue records through better maintenance, reliability, and operations practices. All right. These are our 8 pillars of asset operations. I know that we've probably heard this line. I like how this all sounds, but it'll never happen here. These impossible things have happened before, and it always starts with a group of people believing. That was my journey, the UpKeep journey. And I think, again, it's not only possible, but more important now than ever. There's a labor shortage. I'm sure all of us have experienced it. Turnover's high. Attrition rates are high. But there are more connected assets and more data than ever. They live in silos, and it's hard to take action. We oftentimes work in these 3 separate silos of data, 3 different teams. But the asset operations management vision is to break down these silos of data, bridge them together, unify teams, and make maintenance a profit center. We're riding some really incredible macro trends here. Technician growth is growing. There's going to be more technicians coming and employed over the next 5 years. There's going to be even more machines and assets and equipment that are going to get connected to the cloud. And there's going to be more, even higher exponential amount of equipment data that comes up online over the next 5 years. And I believe that the future of maintenance is possible, necessary, and it starts with all of us here today. And I'm excited to read some of these headlines where we see maintenance teams produce record-breaking, billion-dollar cost savings, and asset operations being one of the secret weapons to top producing manufacturing companies. I know we're just up on time. We wrote a book. It's called Asset Operations. I quickly ran through the 8 pillars of our book, but would highly encourage everyone to get a copy to learn more about what I believe the future of maintenance looks like. You can get one online at assetoperations.com. Thank you, Josh, for posting that here in our restream. I really appreciate everyone's time and attention and curiosity to learn more about what asset operations is.
Ryan, thanks so much. So that was inspirational. It's what I call epic, right? Unfortunately, we're out of time for Q&A. But I do want to say, please still type in questions here. Ryan has access. He can see all the chats, all the goodwill that's coming through. And then he can get back to you individually. Please connect with Ryan in the app, on LinkedIn. And Ryan, thank you so much.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you, everyone, for attending as well.
Appreciate it.